Wanna go, buddy?
It's time. But hello my peeps, welcome back to the channel for the best time of the year. If you are a newbie around here, brace yourself. We go just a little bit overboard with our obsession with the fall and especially pumpkin spice around here. We have made some insanely delicious creations over the past couple of years, as well as some disturbing ones too. And this year I will be doing my best to take it up another notch and maybe depend a little bit less on the gimmicks and the orange food coloring, and focusing more on genuinely delicious and unique pumpkin spice creations. And today should prove to be a fantastic start because we will be concocting a pumpkin spice latte cheeseburger in every sense of the word, so let's get right into this one. In years past, I probably would have just bought some ground beef, a store-bought bun, sprinkled some pumpkin spice on there, and called it a day. But not anymore. We are making every single component basically from scratch, from the spiced mascarpone topping to the espresso glaze, to the tempura kabocha pumpkins, the spiced brioche burger buns, and of course, most importantly, a homemade pumpkin spice mix. Very simply, you will need some nutmeg and cloves, cinnamon and allspice, as well as some ground ginger. Right off the top, obviously, this is very optional. You do not have to make your own pumpkin spice mix. You can just buy it from the store. That is absolutely fine. But as I said, I'm trying to take everything up a notch, including grinding some of my own spices. This results in much more flavorful and fragrant spices, so by all means do this if you've got the time. Of course, if you have a spice grinder, or in my case, a high-powered smoothie blender that I've been using for years and it's never failed me. And using that, we are now gonna whip up some homemade spiced burger buns using some bread flour and salt, active dry yeast and sugar, our pumpkin pie spice and a couple eggs, as well as some whole milk and a whole stick of butter. If you were around last year and remember this recipe, first of all, shout outs to you. This bread recipe was definitely my favorite recipe I've ever created. And I was so freaking happy seeing all the photos you guys were sending me when you were remaking this. But I did see a few comments of people that were having some issues or didn't even attempt it because it seemed like a lot of work, and it is. So a couple of tips here just to help you through everything. Because I'm making burger buns and I wanted a little bit more structure, I used all bread flour. The normal recipe calls for a little bit of AP and bread flour. And you could use whatever you want, really. Use all-purpose flour if that's what you have. You can add a few tablespoons here or there if you think your dough is too sticky. But I will say this dough is insanely wet. It has a super high hydration percentage. You're gonna think you did something wrong for a very long time, and honestly, I wouldn't suggest you try to make this by hand, unless you want to risk your arm falling off its socket, because by the end of this, you would have used your stand mixer on a medium-high speed for 20 to 30 minutes. All that gluten development is what helps this come together and make it not so sticky, a little bit workable. So it definitely would be a tall task to make this by hand for sure. Possible, yes. Advised, probably not. Also, if you're watching your weight line, I do not recommend this either. This thing's got a ton of eggs, a whole stick of butter, plenty of sugar. This is not one of those 45 calorie per slice diet breads. It's probably 45 calories per bite, to be honest. Every time it rises, try to keep this thing in a warm spot. I like to put my oven on a low temperature and just keep it on top of that. But I promise you, with some patience, this will come together. My burger buns looked absolutely delicious. I love the golden brown that the egg wash helps it get. I was a little bit confused by some of the bottoms of these. Half of them look like pretzel buns, and the other half looks like giant macarons, the way they rose and left the feet around the bottom. But either way, they will work perfect for us today, so let's keep it moving. Next up, I wanted to whip up the Espresso Glaze, the coffee part of this burger. And essentially, it's a simple syrup that's infused with some coffee. Make sure to use instant coffee unless you want to feel like you got a mouthful of dirt when you eat this. And I used about a cup of sugar, about 3/4 of a cup of water. Let everything come to a boil, let it cool, and then pour it in whatever kind of vessel you like. A good pinch of kosher salt goes a long way too, just to kind of wake the flavor up, intensify that coffeeness. Next up, I wanted to add some texture, some crunch to this burger. So we are gonna make some tempura kabocha pumpkin with some cake flour and a pumpkin, some kosher salt, and some ice water. Before I forget, actually, shoutouts to Umami Burger, a burger chain who kind of created this concoction. I definitely tweaked it as much as I could just to kind of enhance everything, but when I saw this go viral a couple years ago online, I clearly haven't gotten it out of my head. Now for this, I wanted to chop up the pumpkin in some nice thin strips. I found that the perfect combination for a tempura batter is just some cake flour and ice water. Out of every flour I tested, this resulted in the lightest and crispiest exterior. Just make sure to use equal parts of your flour and water, get your oil nice and hot, around 350 degrees. Let them fry off for 3 to 4 minutes, and then salt them as soon as they come out of the oil. Nice and simple, these should insanely boost the flavor, the texture, the color of this burger. I am extremely happy with the way they came out, and with that, we can finally put it all together and make our cheeseburger. For the final creation, you will need some 80-20 ground beef and Gruyere cheese, some mascarpone cheese, and our espresso syrup, the tempura kabocha, our homemade buns, the homemade pumpkin pie spice, and some salt and pepper. The last bit of prep you've got to do is to address the dairy, namely the spiced mascarpone as well as the Gruyere cheese. I sprinkled in a little bit of the spice mix just to taste, and then grated up plenty of our Gruyere. I love this stuff. Toasted off the buns, cooked off the patty in a cast iron skillet, and threw it all together. And if you wouldn't mind, I'm gonna get a little bit sappy here for a minute, so bear with me. This is now the 7th year I am making pumpkin spice themed videos, which is kind of mind-blowing. I never thought I'd make it to 2 or 3. And the fact that there is a portion of you that have been here for years, as you guys DM me all the time, is unbelievable. I get tired of my own ugly mug after trying to edit these videos sometimes, so the fact that some of you have been around for as long as you have is just mind-blowing. And I'm definitely a little bit extra appreciative this time around because this year was a doozy, peeps. I mentioned it a few times throughout the year, but I have hit multiple rock bottoms in my personal life, on my internet career. So to say it's opened my eyes a little bit more and made me much more appreciative of all you peeps is an understatement, so thank you from the bottom of my heart. But enough of the sappiness, this burger was looking so damn good, everything came together so well, so let's give this bad boy a taste. Well, that was cool. I can't stop staring behind me. Who would have thought that we have a full-on pumpkin spice cheeseburger in front of us that looks like it could have came out of any good restaurant? Some of you might not want to believe this, but this thing freaking works, man. There is so many good attributes of this. It's hitting so many different flavor profiles. It's got salty, sweet, umami, bitterness from the coffee. The only thing it's missing is sour. I freaking love the added texture of the tempura pumpkin, although a lot of the middle parts have gotten a bit soggy, to be honest, but the outsides were still pretty good. And it is shockingly well balanced for how many strong flavors are going on here. I'm very happy. Oh man. I think this came out even better than I was expecting, to be honest, so what a good start to October.